and Steve. Hey guys. What's going
Hello,
on?
Scott. Steve, my man, how are you doing over there on the West Coast?
It's very nice today. Doing well.
Yeah, well, it's a typical, heat wave here in Texas, but hey, I'm used to it by now. Welcome, everybody.
Just
Today
remember
is
how it used to
June.
be.
What's that?
Just remember how it used to be for you here, Jamie.
Yes, I have my own oasis in my mind. Um, so, thank you all for attending. Looks like we got a nice little crowd in here, and June is upon us. I don't think it's officially summer just yet. I forget what day that actually is, but you know,
21st.
it's summer here. It's been summer since mid-May. So in any case, welcome everybody. Got some cool stuff to share with you guys here today. But before we dive in, let's get the disclaimer out of the way. Simply meaning that the webinars that we come at you guys with on a weekly basis, whether it's this one or the live support session or anything like that. Um, we're here to educate you, all right? So please do not misconstrue what we share with you as buy or sell information. If you do need somebody to tell you what to buy, when to buy it, all that good stuff, please do yourself a favor. Seek out someone like a registered investment advisor or a Series 7 licensed stockbroker. In other words, somebody that's legally licensed to give you that type of information. All right, always like to take a little bit of time at the top of the hour to point out to the newer folks in the room, the community that we've created around trade ideas. All kind of starts up here in the upper left with the trading room, which is free to everyone. Even if you're not a subscriber, it's free to get in there. If you've shopped around on the web for trading rooms to hang out in, you've probably noticed they come with a pretty steep price tag, but not the case here. Even better than the price of the trading room of free is Barry Anderson, who is our moderator, illustrious moderator of the trading room, and pretty darn good intraday trader as well. And Barry's going to open the doors to the trading room 30 minutes before every open. He's going to be pretty busy in the first hour or so, but once things calm down, he loves to answer questions and help educate people on the use of the scanner. So if you haven't been using or attending the trading room, by all means get in there and do so. Of course, today's Monday. Every other Monday you get myself and Steve. Every other Tuesday you're going to get Steve and Andy for the trade of the week. Every other Wednesday over here you're going to get Dan and Brad for the Q&A demo, always entertaining with those two. And then every other Thursday, you got Andy with the trading studio, and I'm gonna ride shotgun with him. So those are all the 5 p.m. Eastern webinars. Of course, every weekday, Monday through Friday, starting at 12 p.m. Eastern, we have the daily support session. So that is a YouTube link that I'll show you guys how to access here in just a second, but it's a great place to come get all your questions answered about anything TI related. So this URL down here, tradeideas.com/live, that'll get you to the live support session. So that is a static address. Once you get there, just bookmark it for easy access. So once again, live support from a different person each and every day of the week, anything TI related. And the education does not stop there. We've got a great video series, which is also available on our YouTube channel. This is the TI University 101, 201, 301, and 401. Especially if you're brand new, you need to watch these two, okay? Because they can really help get you over that learning curve a lot quicker, get you familiarized with the basic navigation and functionality of Trade Ideas Pro. Once you get past that, if you're ready for some more advanced stuff, you can cruise on over to intermediate and advanced, which covers the more advanced functionality like back testing, optimization, and all that good stuff. Okay, and here we are at today's agenda. Gonna let Steve handle the market recap here in just a moment. I forgot to change this part of the slide, so ignore that. But everything else is pretty much up to date. The CC readings were pretty spot on today. 51%, bullish, meaning anything can go, and that's exactly what happened. We'll look at that peel off that we had. Holly recap, well, we'll get to that as well. Got some usual suspects in line with the previous day's rippers and previous day's dippers, but I've got two new toys for you guys today. A couple of top list. One is called at or close to the 50-day SMA, but below the 200, a little bit different of a view, but still finding some really nice setups. Then I've got a top list to share with you guys that will keep your eyes on the radar for new IPOs with limited trading days. And of course, as is typically the case, the Hugging the 10 stock race produced some pretty good plays if you were watching it early today. So I tell you what, Steve, if you're ready to take it and look at the overall market action, I'll kick it over to you and then we'll progress from there.
Sure. Let's see here. There we go. I was just running a back test there, but it's going slow. I'll come back to that. I'm going to start this time with a couple of obscure ETFs here. The first one is the 7 to 10-year Treasury Bond ETF, IEF, and the other is TLT, the 20-year Treasury Bond ETF. Those are some ugly ass charts right there in terms of price, but what you got to remember is price and interest rates are inverse. So what we're looking at here is a pretty good indication that higher interest rates are going to be talked about going forward. That's a pretty weak looking chart. Looks like really good chance we're going to go down and test those lows again. So the headlines probably this week are going to be more interest rate related. Just a quick thought there. Going to the S&P 500, using the SPY as our proxy. Actually, David had us, he had to give some sort of opinion today that went to the media. Oh, go. I'm watching that one tomorrow and it just triggered after hours. Of course, that's what they do. We kind of gave him a couple sentence summary, so we thought we'd share it with you, how the market's been done since the beginning of May. Well, the beginning of May started another leg lower with a double test down here, but ended with a nice dead cat bounce. So the real question is, that's what we have. Is this dead cat bounce going to hold? There is a possibility with this 10 moving average coming up, and the way the market's not pulling back to lows, it's waiting to see what the buyers are going to do here as this 10 SMA moves up. The only problem is we've got a very interesting looming 50-day SMA moving overhead, and it's been sloping downward since February. Okay, so this is the general health of any stock or index, and it's continuing to slope downward. So it's guilty until proven innocent. So that's what the SPYs look like, and relatively speaking, the NASDAQ and the Qs have the same overhead question mark. I'll just put right there. What's going to happen if these two meet? It seems quite likely that the consolidation that we've had here is probably going to give a good swell attempt to try and at least test that 50. So we'll see what comes of that. I will say that I put on the beginning of a short today using the IWM. Notice, I already have the arrow drawn. Notice how much closer the Russell 2000 IWM is to its declining 50-day. It's pretty darn close. And so I actually put like a 1/2 position on today. And the only thing that's going to get me out of this position is if the IWM, I fully expect it to test it, quite honestly. But if it pops up and closes a couple days above the 50, I'll let this idea go. But the point is, going short is much better waiting for the dead cat bounce, which I think is what we're experiencing. But we do have this looming support coming up on all three of the indexes I just looked at. So I went ahead and took a stab at that, and I did it by way of TZA. Okay, so it's a triple inverse. There's really nothing to look at on that chart. It's like a funhouse mirror. So what we want to just is always focus on the underlying security before the triple X crazy mirror pops in there. So I'm basically using this little dead cat bounce here to fade. I'm long a couple things too. I'm long the trade of the week. I went ahead and just bought it. But the trade of the week is going to trigger officially at 71.81, but this is an energy company. Nat gas and energy, and it's just holding that 10 SMA beautifully. And in this case, there is no 50-day moving average above it. That's clear blue sky above that level. So I'm long a couple of things that look good in the energy, but I'm hedging now with a TZA, which has had a pretty big sell-off. And again, this is the inverse of the IWM. So I'm kind of hedging myself here with what I feel is like a safe entry. All right, we're not shorting down here at new lows. We're waiting for the bounce and finding a level that makes sense to go ahead and start legging into a short sell. So that's what I'm doing over here, and that's what really the market's telling us. The takeaway of my segment is what's going to happen when this 50-day moving average zooms in down on the NASDAQ Qs and the SPY. That's going to be the real interesting point for me to watch.
Thank you very much, Steve.
Yep.
I like your IWM short idea.
Well, I stole it from Andy, but I'll take credit. I agreed.
I got to
So
tell you, Andy called it perfect today when we were, running up. He's like, I'm peeling off half because I don't trust this market. And boy, he was right on the money.
Any comment on DK? Yeah, before I go, DK, I'm out of that one. I've faded out of that one, and I wish I still had a chunk to hold on to. So there's nothing wrong with taking off a little bit when you've got wonderful separation here from the price and the 10 SMA. It's just a matter of time before a reversion to the mean happens. So when these happy green candles are going your way, sell a third at a time. But it still looks pretty good. But I think it's just any day now we're going to have that musical chairs where the elevator drops people back down into the same level that it triggered, around 30 or maybe a little bit higher. So be careful. Don't get too greedy on these when they start going like that. That's it.
Very good. Let me grab it back here. Okay. All right, ladies and gents. Okay, so on this overall market action, as soon as I saw this reading here today, 51% on my compare count window, which I look at after the first 15 minutes of every open, which is looking at any of the stocks with a market cap above 4 billion with a little bit of accelerated volume. And we keep count of those, how many are hitting highs, how many are hitting lows, and just 1% short of the 50-50 mark. So especially in this market environment, when it comes out like this, typically the path of least resistance is going to be to the downside, and that's kind of exactly how it played out today. So let's see here. How long did we even make it? 15-minute candle, we ran up for 30 minutes, consolidated, and then just whoosh, never saw that high for the rest of the day. So good info from the old compare count window there today. Now, as far as Holly goes, well, there was some interesting things happening, which when we look at AMBA today, of course, what you see here is going to jive with just about, well, can't say all the stocks in the market today, but this was certainly commonplace and something that was working. And eventually, if you didn't take those cookies when you were up nicely in this area, well, you almost ended up with nothing or simply a handful of crumbs. Now, not the most graceful exit for the AI today. Looking at conservative profit of a minus $1.50 on a 100 share lot versus holding to the close, making 84.50. And just a friendly reminder here, all of these trades are based around 100 shares, right? So not even quite a point holding the AMBA till the very close, but with the entry price of 84.72, what do we top out here? 86.86, I believe. Yeah, because I had some of this on my blotter, up about 2 points, and if you didn't take that money, well, you were hardly left with anything. So it was just one of those days where you better be taking profits. Kind of coalesced with what Andy said. I'm taking off half my positions because I don't trust the market. And boy, his call was right on the money there. So as far as what we're looking at here with conservative and moderate profit, examining, is there any spread here? Well, a little bit in AMBA, just a tiny bit in Aspen here. So let's take a look at that one. But then again, nothing to write home about. Well, as you can see here, entry price of 2069, exit price of 2090. Maybe flip a coin on this one, just not a whole lot there, an extra 20 bucks on a 100 share lot. So not really much conservative and moderate spread to talk about. Typically the other two things that we like to showcase are the trade arounds and the add-ons, and those were pretty much non-existent today as well. If you all will give me 1 second, let me wet my whistle here. Much better. Getting a little dry in the throat there. Okay, so just kind of a up and down day for Holly. Looking at the risk modes over here, moderate won the battle, negative $5.21 on a bunch of 100 share lots. Not too shabby. Kind of funny today. Conservative, not quite down a point, 80 bucks, and aggressive, if you just, held everything and hoped to the close, only down about half a point. Of course, we never recommend holding everything and hoping for the close. You still have to exercise proper risk management. But all in all, just kind of a wash for Holly today. We'll see what she comes up with tomorrow. Okay, moving right along. Now, I'm usually finding a lot of good longs on these previous days rippers, but boy, it was few and far between today. Matter of fact, the only decent one that I could spot was CO. So let's just take a look at that one today. And before I get into this, what is, for those of you who might be new, if you're a regular attendee, you already know what the previous day's rippers are and previous day's dippers. These two alert windows right here. Oops. Well, wrong button there. Give me 1 second. And where did you go? There we go. Okay. So these two windows right here are attached to custom lists, which are generated by these two top lists about 5 minutes before every close. So the list for this one was all the stocks that were on this list over here about 5 minutes before the close on Friday, as well as all the stocks from this list about 5 minutes from the close on Friday. We're powering this window today. And boy, we had a lot of symbols coming through here, but everything looked pretty much garbagey. All right. CO was one of the only conducive patterns that I was able to find today. And here we have the pre-market range right here. And the unique thing about these windows is that you can participate in the first 1 minute if you find something that's conducive. What is conducive? Well, when we have a pre-market range that is discernible, easily discernible between the high and the low, and we don't just want a bunch of little dots in there. Kind of wide bars for a pre-market range, but not a whole lot of price action between 336 and 350. All right, a lower dollar stock. But the name of the game here is waiting for the regular session to open until we see a break of the pre-market high, which this one occurred right here, where the blue arrow is about an hour into the open. And you can see what this little guy did. As soon as it broke that 350 area, we topped out around 385. Not a huge move from a monetary standpoint, but pretty darn good from a percentage basis. And just like a lot of the longs that we see today or saw today, if you go back and review the charts, if you didn't take that money, it didn't stick around for very long because the market tended to drag everything down. Now, the downside version was a lot more productive of the two of these windows today. So let's take a look at some of the ones that were identifiable in the downside version today. We had Indo making an appearance. Let me get rid of those lines. Spread this little guy out a bit just so we can see. Once again, not the prettiest pre-market ranges today, but discernible enough. We had the high up here. So if we put a line there, we had the low down here. And as soon as the session opened in that first 15-minute candle, we broke to the downside, never looked back, not really. So just a smooth transition down. This is what I like to refer to as a sweat-free trade. It's never wiggling against you. And this is the allure of this technique, using these two top lists to power these windows, because we all know that a lot of the times the big move comes in the first hour or so. Not to say that additional downside or upside opportunity might not present itself, but being able to participate in these types of moves with clearly discernible risk off the open, that's a good thing. So nice little reward area here in Indo. And we could probably fit that risk area probably a couple times in there. So a 2R or close to a 2R return on a day like today. Not too shabby. I see your question there, Raj. How can you create these windows? Fear not, because I've got all the windows that I'm talking about ready to go in link form here. And before we conclude, I'm going to drop all these links into the chat panel. That way you'll have all the cloud links for everything. No problem. Okay, so not a bad one from Indo today. Next on the list, KD. Not a whole lot of activity here that we see, but enough to know what was going on. All right, low down there, high right up here. And this little guy, 1 minute or 1 candle, 2 candle, 3 candle, right about the 45-minute to hour level. We get the break from that wick. Of course, you know, we've got wicks in play here. And of course, this is always going to be a personal preference. Do you play off the wicks or the candle bodies? You know, if you would have played off the candle bodies on this one, you would have got in a little bit earlier, 1160-ish, 1146, only about 15 cents went away if you were waiting for the wick. And of course, the majority of the move occurring after that wick was penetrated. So once again, nice tight risk area. Oops, that's actually not the risk. That would have been risk. Nice little reward area. Once again, looking right about a twofer or maybe just a little bit below that. So not a bad down move on KD. I'm just going to kind of circle back to what Steve was saying about getting short in that IWM. And it's been on my mind a lot, you know, especially with the market doing what it's doing. And, you know, if we do have more downside action, if you're not actively shorting things, you're kind of fighting with one arm tied behind your back. And I know shorting isn't for everyone, but you know, if you've just been putting off learning the, you know, the short sell, which is just the opposite of going long, you might want to start dabbling your feet in there with some small lots, getting used to it, because, you know, there could be a lot of good opportunity coming up on the short side. So you always want to be prepared. All right, next we have Cvna. Once again, decent pre-market activity here. And, you know, nice and tame. It threw that little weird, you know, toppy wick there to the upside and the downside. So, you know, once again, personal preference. As soon as these candle bodies were broken here, it was just downside momentum. There was a little bit of a wiggle, but not much before it releases to the main move for the day. And once again, a nice hefty profit area and a rather small risk area there. Okay, James, what time are you going to be bailing here, buddy? Like, are you going to be leaving now or in about 10, 15 minutes? You just tell me. Okay, we'll wait for James to respond there. W 2 minutes. Is that leaving in 2 minutes? Okay, I tell you what, just for you, I'm going to go ahead and drop these in, but keep in mind, if I see a bunch of people leaving after I drop these links, I'm going to be upset. I'm going to think you don't like me. So I tell you what, hold on 1 second. Now, before I do this, in the IPO top list that we're going to be covering in this new top list window, there is a custom formula. All right, so it's aptly labeled, but you will have to create a custom and make sure I tell you guys the setting. Okay, so mine's U68. You can assign whatever prefix you want to it, but you'll want to have a 0 in the max field. Okay, that's all you have to do. Once you get the custom in there, you just put a 0 in the max field. So hold on 1 second and I will drop these links. And
if there's any confusion on that custom formula, just email us at info@trade-ideas.com.
yes, indeed. Thank you, Steve. Okay, so the links are in there. So James, you're good to go. You owe me one, buddy. Have a good rest of the day. Okay, Jamie's lost his train of thought. Okay, we were on Cvna. Okay, another really good downside mover with that pre-market range break there. And last on the shorts, and keep in mind there were probably about twice as many as we're showcasing in this little bit, but we do have limited time. CGC, Canopy Growth, everybody knows about Canopy Growth being, you know, one of the fall from graces in the cannabis industry. What was the top of that wick there? 56 bucks, languishing at $4 right now, so over a 10x decrease in that share price. And it presented us with a little bit of good short, activity today. You know, too bad that big green candle had to kind of screw up that range there, but 436, only about 6 cents or so. But once again, once we cross this threshold to the downside, just a nice release down. Let's mark off our risk up here, even though we have to use the big green candle, and reward down here. So not a bad move for a small price stock. You know, signal coming around 430 and not quite, you know, 40 cents would have been 10%. So not too shabby there on a percentage return, assuming shares were available to you to short on Canopy Growth. But man, take a look at that weekly one more time. And we're right back down here to where we were in the 2010 era before it really lit up. So might be one to keep an eye on moving forward. I know the psychedelics have gotten a lot of press lately, LSD and psilocybin. Canada is pushing forward with treatment for those compounds. But the whole cannabis industry is kind of taking a back seat to the hallucinogens right now. So it'll be interesting to see how that all develops. All right, so that's all we're going to do for the PDRs today. Nice plays, very limited to the upside, which, you know, keep in mind, as these symbols are coming through these guys, if you're not seeing a lot of good quality setups, like I wasn't seeing today, then that should give you a little tip off, you know, compared to the compare counts, some of the other whisperings that you're hearing from some of the other favorite windows and indicators, to focus more on the downside. And that was certainly the case today. All right, which one are we going to talk about first here? Let's do the at or close to the 50-day SMA, but below the 200. And we'll save the IPO one for last. Okay, so this is how this guy looked at the close. Now, is there going to be anything good to look at? You might have to backtrack a little bit, but you never know. Now, I put this one together over the weekend, and I started looking at some plays, and I'm like, hey, you know, showing me some pretty good chart patterns. Let's take a look at some of the ones I found over the weekend, because I noticed that a lot of those were working today. For example, OZK was shown to me over the weekend, right? Notice the pink line is the 50, right? Notice the action here that we're seeing around the 50. Notice the correlation, you know, the 10 starting to cross now, but the 50 has acted as a level of support as this thing consolidates sideways. So before too long, we might get a little test of this area up here and have a move higher, right? Nice and simple, all right? So once again, close proximity to the 50, but if we look at the 200, it's way up here. So we could theoretically say there's room to the 200, but we can't ignore, you know, the lines in the sand that may act as temporary or just areas of resistance, right? So if this little thing starts to light up, this is the level of interest. If it gets through there, in the case of OZK, we might just go have a visit with the 200, but that's not always going to be the case. Some of them are going to be too far away, but you know, the overall idea is, you know, to find some things that might move. Nothing really to speak of on the weekly there. Going a little sideways action. But let's take a look at some of the ones that were on the list today. And I've constructed this top list in a way that hopefully is nice and simple. So here we have the 50-day SMA, and we have the 200-day SMA. So you can go about this whichever way you think is the most conducive for the way you think, right? We could at first look at the stocks that are just, you know, right at the mark on the 50-day, but none of these stocks are going to be above 0.5% or lower than 0.5%. So let's just take a look at the settings here. Okay, and you can see right here, price is no more than 0.5% above, no more than 0.5% or below, or anywhere in between, right at it, or anywhere in between. So nice and simple. So we could focus on that, but you know, what's the magic number? Is it 0.1, negative 0.1? The way I prefer to go about it is just to sort by the things that are most below the 200-day average, right? And then we know that we're not going to get anything that's 0.5% one side or the other, okay? So then we just go about the process of pulling these guys up, taking a gander at the dailies here, and then picking some levels that might be of interest, right? Here we got step, you know, and of course, these patterns are going to be out there and they're going to be above all moving averages or right at, but I just figured this would be might be a way to find some stocks that have been really beaten down, that are significantly away from their 200-day moving average. And it's producing some pretty good setups here. So once again, we got the pink line. Notice the action. Let me expand this out just a little bit. Notice the action, you know, the 50-day caught it pretty well today. Of course, you know, if we do decide to take one of these trades, we have to assess our risk. In this case, you know, depending on your allotment, of course, everything's adjustable, right? Say you wanted to give it to the bottom of that candle there, obviously you would have to size down accordingly or be willing to sit a 3-point wiggle. Or if you want to be more on the, you know, it either works or it doesn't, I'm not patient with this one, we could always use that 10 period there or a close below the 10 period as well. So not a bad little setup there on step. Okay, MedP looking very similar. Of course, you can't even see the 200 on this one, but if we crunch it up, oh, it's way up there. But before we would ever even think about going for a visit to Uncle 200 Day, well, this little area right here is definitely going to play a part. This area might play another part. So sometimes there's a lot of stepping stones to get through. Sometimes there's not. In this case, we can see some levels that might be of value here. But, you know, not a bad little sideways march that MedP is putting in right here. And once again, clearly definable at the bottom of the range down here. It's being established by the previous days. Or if you want to cut that risk a little sooner or cut that loser a little sooner if it doesn't work, we've always got the 10-day in here being represented as well. Take a look at MRUS. Okay, looks like the train's kind of, you know, already left the station on what we have going as far as the candles go. Now it is in close proximity to the 50, but the only thing I find interesting about this right here is the you know, the wick close that it put in today. You know, sellers tried to take it down, couldn't do it. Buyers took control back, but you know, not necessarily something that I just jump into here, like a little bit more conducive of a pattern. All right, take a look at what's going on here. Nice action on the daily. Don't necessarily, you know, not saying that it couldn't work, but we definitely have this area up here to contend with if this guy does get going. So we're currently at 78.88. Well, that's not a bad little range. Of course, these guys are going to come into play first, but hey, you never know. You never know on this one. Right down to the 50, kind of violated the 10. Of course, what might look good to me might not look good to you guys, and vice versa. But as you can see here, it's pulling up a lot of the, you know, similar daily sideways action with the moving averages down here for quick risk assessment or using the candle patterns, whichever one you think is the tightest or gives you the most confidence there as far as a risk. But this is just a way to quickly see which ones are the most below their moving average on the 200-day. And not to say that some of these that might be slightly below might not be conducive as well, but the general idea of this was, okay, if they're significantly below the 200, they might have been beaten down and might be doing, a sideways dance or just a more conducive dance to take a stab on a long on a swing trade, and not have to worry too much about your risk and get that stop loss in place and go with it. So nice and simple. Any questions about the at or close to the 50-day SMA that's below the 200-day? Oh, and before we move on here, I will tell you this. Now, this list is always going to be changing, right, as those stocks move in proximity to the 50-day SMA. So good example today was AMBA. And I do believe it was 11:55 my time, which would have been 12:55 Eastern. But AMBA was on this list, right? And when I expand out here, you can see it was just in close proximity to that 50-day. I look over, I see Holly in it, and that was the biggest trade of the day. So, not a bad little correlation there on the first day of really watching this list in the regular market session. So, a little 2-point move like that, keep in mind, you kind of have to adapt in this market, a little bit of hybrid maybe. So, if I do take out a trade here lately with the intent of swinging it, and I do get a nice little 3 to 5% pop, I might be taking half that off and, just keeping the other half, very similar to Andy's call about midday today as well. Let me pull, I had frozen this one earlier, and you can see, I forgot what time I froze this one, but the list looks completely different. But if we do go back and unfreeze it and take a peek at that 1150, it'll either be 11 or 1150 or 1155. Let's just see if AMBA pops up here. Okay. Did I unfreeze it? Yeah. Ah, okay. Yes, we do not trade at 11 p.m. at night. All right, I guess it was the next block. Unless my eyes are playing tricks on me there. Let's see. Okay, well, I don't know why it's not coming up now. That's why I kind of was afraid that might happen. That's why I dumped the filter config into an alert window, because take note, if you get sick of looking at top list and 5-minute chunks, you can always collaborate it into an alert window. So that's what I did here. So if we take a look at the config, that is the top list right there, filter settings, just pointed to AMBA. Okay, I was an hour off. 12:55 my time. I don't know, got that 1 hour difference between Central and Eastern mixed up, but there we have it right there, 12:55, not 11:55. So a nice correlation there on that one. Okay, looks like the questions panel is all clear, so we're just going to progress on to the next topic here, which won't take too long. This is the IPO top list, okay? Now, it's not tied to a list of IPOs per se. What we had to do is use a little workaround in the form of the custom formula, which is included in the links that I posted here. It just has to do with the number of trading days, which is, it's right here. So you're gonna insert that custom formula, assign a U prefix to it. Once you get that done, you're just gonna put a 0 in the max field, and then you can tweak it out a little bit according to your min-max price. I've got a few share requirements in here. Just had to have traded 100,000. But other than a dollar minimum requirement, which haven't seen a lot of IPOs going off below $1. I've seen some going down to $1, but not the other way around. It's really hardly any filters at all. Just a minimum price of $1, 100,000 shares traded, and then we put a 0 in the max field for the custom. And this list is always going to be changing. So for example, top is only 1, 2, 3, 4 days old. It is a Chinese financial group. So we all know what's been happening to the Chinese stocks as of late, or anytime they can go on big rips. And here you have a nice little flat range, excluding the first trading day here. So keep in mind, each and every day when you have time, you're going to see a lot of repeats on this, but you're going to see some new symbols pop in from time to time. So as you're scrolling through there, it would probably be very conducive to start setting some price alerts, because you never know when these things are going to pop. I don't see Vidu on here today because it's probably past the number of days, but when you see things like this, there's no guarantee. It may continue to go lower, but more times than not, whether it's a gap up or a move up, these little guys that have been punished, this guy opened at 28, topped out right there, and is now languishing down here at $1.27. Now, like I said, no guarantees, but that seems to be a pretty sturdy discount, right? So no harm, no foul. Set that price alert. If it goes off, size up the risk and it looks good, go for it. If you want to try to beat the move, well, we have a clearly definable risk area here. I think the low on this guy, and what is the low now? $1.24 today. So, according to your risk parameters and how much you allocate, 24 cents is the risk, or 30, about, say you bought this thing at $1.21, risk 21 cents, make it penetrate that dollar level. Either stops you out for a small loser, or one day it takes off or has a nice little gap up there. So that's kind of the theory behind tracking these things. It's not just blindly jumping into them. It's assessing the risk, going, yeah, these things might pop one day. I'll go ahead and take a little piece here. If I get stopped out, no harm, no foul. But we've all seen what these things can do. More importantly, kind of in the last SPAC, the SPAC, Special Acquisition Corporations, they seem to do this a lot as well. So as the days progress, set your price alerts. Another handy thing to do, and I'll just use Vidu as the example since we've got a lot of bars to look at here. If you want to know some key levels on these stocks with limited trading days, let's just go to the good old anchored VWAP. And we come up here and we click on the icon, we click on the anchor, and then we anchor. We could anchor to the first day of trading, and you can see, whoosh, definitely a level of interest here. All right. If this thing ever does take off, all right, this is definitely going to be an interesting level. It's either going to act as short-term resistance, or if we got to close on a day below that purple line, well, that could be a very good bullish sign. So that's always a good thing to do when you're trying to figure out key levels with stocks with limited trading days, is just anchor the good old VWAP, right? And sometimes it's good to do the second day, but I think in this one, you're going to see a pretty close correlation, and there you go, okay? So remember that when dealing with things with limited trading days, make sure you know what your risk is, have that stop in, and anchor that VWAP. Trying to see if there's any, okay, that guy's 3 days old. This guy's 3 days old. BNRG, this is one that I'm in as well. Notice the title. It's an energy company, right? Energy is definitely in play right now, for obvious reasons, right? There's not enough to go around. So BNRG, definitely on my watch list. If we pull the old anchored VWAP on this one, what do we get? Boom. Just tapped it today, got rejected back down. Forget where the low of this one is, but still in it, down a little bit, might add to it. We'll see what happens. But just a very, uniform way to track these things with limited trading days. Assess your risk, anchor the VWAP, watch this window for the new ones as they show up. Okay, and no need to drop all the links since that's already been done. Yeah, it should be in there, Joseph. Let's just make sure before we conclude here. If I can resize my chat window here. Well, it's not letting me do it, but yeah, the custom formula is right above the recent IPO top list, right? I don't know if you guys can see this or if this window is invisible and go to, but it is definitely in there. All right, so you guys are good to go. You got all the links for the new windows. You got the custom formula. I want to thank everybody for popping in today. We know you're busy. So good luck to all of you for the rest of the trading week. And Scott, if you're ready to walk us on out, it is that time.
Yeah, sounds good. All right, thank you. So we do have an ebook that we released recently. It's Favorite Strategies Indicators ebook. It's really helpful, written by our director of software development. Just go to tradeideas.com/strategy to grab that. It's free and it's great. If you're using interactive brokerage, or if you're thinking about it, keep in mind with premium trade ideas, you can connect Brokerage Plus and do automatic trading. Interactive Brokers is one of the most reliable brokers out there. They don't do the commission free with us, but they are excellent, and they're one of our top 2 brokers that our clients use. If you haven't checked out stock racing, you should do that. We've been demoing it a lot. It's a great way to visualize data. Just go to tradeideas.com/stockrace to watch a couple videos on that. It's already in our current release. And if you're using E-Trade, you can trade commission free the same way you can trade with interactive brokerage with us. Just go to trade-ideas.com/E-Trade. We integrate our Brokerage Plus platform directly with them. And it's a really great commission-free trading experience. You got a couple hours left to get in on the Memorial Day test drive sale. That ends tonight. Use the code TestDrive25. Get in on that. Code is good until tomorrow. So get in that before midnight. And if you're not acting fast enough and watching the replay, use the code FASTDATA. It's good for the month of June. Saves 15% off your first month or year and upgrade. And you can find us on YouTube. We're Trade Ideas. Jamie is at QuantBot on Twitters, and Steve is TISTG. You can also find us on Facebook, Trade Ideas Pro. We should throw the new TikTok handle in there on the next time we do this webinar on the slide, and we'll add that. But if you have any questions, email us info@tradeideas.com. I'll be happy to answer all your questions, and stay tuned tomorrow for a replay of this session. So thank you all. Thanks, Steve and Jamie. Have a good one.
Thank you, everybody. We will see you next time.
See you later.
Bye-bye.